He didn't even look at her when he spoke. To him, she wasn't a person. She was just part of the background, like the table, the chair, the glass in his hand. Disposable. But what he didn't know was that one small moment, one careless sentence, was about to follow him into the most important deal of his life. And this time, he wouldn't be the one in control. The restaurant was the kind of place where silence felt expensive. Soft piano music floated through the air, while crystal glasses reflected warm golden light. Every detail, from the polished marble floors to the perfectly folded napkins, whispered wealth. This wasn't just dinner. This was where powerful people made decisions. And tonight, one of those people sat at the center table. Adrian Cole. A man known for closing deals others couldn't even touch. Sharp, ruthless, untouchable, at least, that's what everyone believed. He adjusted his cufflinks and glanced at his watch. His time was valuable. Every second mattered. Tomorrow morning, he would finalize a contract that could double his company's worth. Everything was aligned. Everything was under control, or so he thought. "Good evening, sir," a calm voice said. But Adrian didn't look up. "I'll have the usual," he replied, waving his hand slightly, as if brushing away a distraction. The waitress paused for a moment, then answered softly, of course. Still, he didn't meet her eyes. Her name was Maya. She moved with quiet confidence, not rushed, not nervous. Unlike the other staff, she didn't seem intimidated by the environment or the people in it. There was something different about her. Not obvious, but noticeable. As she returned with his drink, Adrian was on a call. "Yes, I want everything ready by morning," he said sharply. "No mistakes. This deal is too important." He ended the call and reached for his glass. Maya placed it gently in front of him, and for a brief second their eyes met. And something strange happened. She didn't look away immediately. Not out of disrespect, but out of awareness, as if she recognized him. Adrian noticed it, and he didn't like it. "What?" he said coldly. Maya blinked once and stepped back slightly. "Nothing, sir. Just making sure everything is to your liking." He let out a quiet scoff. Then, "Don't stare," he muttered. "Just do your job." The words were low, but sharp enough to cut. A couple nearby glanced over briefly. Maya didn't react. She simply nodded and said, of course, before walking away. But something about her silence felt different. Not weak. Not defeated. Controlled. Minutes passed as Adrian focused on his tablet, reviewing numbers, projections, and clauses. Everything was lining up perfectly. This deal would put him ahead of everyone else, and that was all that mattered. Maya returned with his food, carefully plated and perfectly presented. "Your dinner, sir," she said. Adrian barely looked at it. "About time," he muttered, then added louder, People really think this pace is acceptable in a place like this?" The words hung in the air, and this time more people noticed. A quiet tension spread across the room. Maya stood still for a moment, then calmly replied, "I apologize if there was any delay." Her voice didn't shake. Her posture didn't change. That alone irritated him more. "Apologies don't fix incompetence," Adrian said, finally looking directly at her. "If you can't handle the job, maybe you shouldn't be here." Silence followed, heavy and uncomfortable. It felt like the entire restaurant was watching, waiting. But Maya didn't argue. She didn't defend herself. She didn't break. Instead, she said something unexpected. "Is everything else satisfactory, sir?" It wasn't submissive. It wasn't weak. It was intentional. Adrian frowned. Something about her response felt off, like she wasn't affected at all, like his words didn't land the way they were supposed to. He leaned back slightly, studying her now, really looking for the first time. "You're new," he said. It wasn't a question. Maya tilted her head slightly. In this role, yes. The answer was simple, but strange. Adrian narrowed his eyes. "What does that mean?" There was a brief pause before she replied, "It means I'm still learning." There it was again, that calm tone, that controlled presence. Adrian didn't like it. Not one bit. He shook his head dismissively. Then learn faster, he said, because in places like this, people expect better. Maya nodded once. Understood. She turned to leave, but just before she walked away, she stopped. Sir, she said. Adrian didn't respond immediately. You mentioned a contract, she continued. Important one, I assume? That caught his attention. He looked up, clearly annoyed. That's none of your concern, he said. Maya met his gaze for just a second, then gave a small, polite nod. You're right. And she walked away. Adrian watched her go, and something about that exchange didn't sit right with him. Why would a waitress ask about his contract? How did she even catch that detail? He brushed it off. Irrelevant. Unimportant. Just like her. But as he returned to his tablet, for the first time that evening, he lost focus. Somewhere in the back of his mind, a small question lingered. Who was she? He shook his head again, pushing the thought away. He had bigger things to worry about. Tomorrow would define everything. And nothing, absolutely nothing, was going to get in his way. He finished his meal, signed the bill without looking, and stood up. As he walked toward the exit, he didn't look back. Didn't think twice. Didn't care. But behind him, Maya stood near the counter, watching, not with anger, not with resentment, but with something far more dangerous, understanding. Because she knew something, he didn't. And by this time tomorrow, everything he believed about power, control, and status was about to change. The next morning arrived quietly, but for Adrian Cole, it felt like a day that could redefine everything he had built. The city was already moving in its usual rhythm, people rushing, cars honking, deals being made in silence behind glass towers. But for him, none of it mattered today. Today was about one thing only, the contract, a deal worth millions, a partnership that would elevate his company beyond competition. Years of strategy, pressure, and calculated risks were about to pay off in a single signature. He adjusted his suit, checked his reflection once, and smiled slightly. Everything was under control. Everything was where it should be. Or so he believed. Inside the corporate building, the atmosphere was different from the restaurant. It wasn't warm or elegant. It was cold, structured, and powerful in a different way. Glass walls. Long corridors. Quiet footsteps. This wasn't a place for mistakes. This was a place where decisions decided futures. Adrian walked in with confidence, his presence already commanding attention. Employees greeted him, but he barely acknowledged them. His mind was already ahead, visualizing the signature, the agreement, the victory. He had no doubts, no hesitation, no fear. People like him didn't lose. At least, that's what he told himself. He entered the meeting room early. The table was already set, documents neatly arranged, water glasses perfectly aligned. Everything looked official. Final, permanent. He sat down, leaning back in his chair, reviewing the contract casually. Numbers, clauses, legal terms, all aligned exactly as expected. His partner had never missed before. Why would they start now? A faint sense of satisfaction formed in his chest. This was it. The moment everything paid off. Then the door opened. A staff member entered first, followed by another executive. And then, silence shifted, because the last person to walk in wasn't someone he expected to see here. It was her, Maya. But something was different. She wasn't wearing a uniform anymore. No apron, no name tag, no waitress presence. Instead, she walked in with calm authority, dressed professionally, composed, and unmistakably important. The same quiet confidence from last night, but now amplified. Adrian frowned slightly. A strange discomfort hit him immediately, though he couldn't explain why. She looked familiar, but wrong in this setting. One of the executives spoke first. We're glad everyone is here. Before we proceed with final signatures, we'd like to confirm all decision makers are present. Adrian nodded, still confused, but composed. I am ready. Then Maya spoke. Her voice was calm, controlled. Different from the night before, yet the same foundation remained. I am also present. A pause. Adrian turned slightly toward her. Excuse me? One of the executives cleared his throat. Mr. Cole, allow me to formally introduce her. This is Maya Reynolds. She is not part of the staff you saw last night. Another pause. Adrian blinked once. What does that mean? The executive continued carefully. She is one of the key partners in this agreement. In fact, she has final authority over the approval process. The room shifted, not physically, but emotionally. Something invisible cracked in the atmosphere. Adrian didn't react immediately. His mind refused to process it at first. It didn't make sense. Not here. Not now. His eyes slowly moved back to Maya, and for the first time since last night, he looked at her differently. Not as a waitress, but as something else entirely. Still calm, still composed, still unreadable. Maya met his gaze without effort. No anger, no satisfaction, no emotional reaction at all, just control. That was what unsettled him most. Finally, he spoke. You're telling me she's part of this deal? The executive nodded. More than that. A pause again. And then the words came. She is the reason this deal exists. Silence dropped instantly. Adrian felt it, not just in the room, but internally. Something tightened in his chest. His confidence, so steady all morning, began to shift for the first time. He looked at her again. Memory flashed. The restaurant, the drink, the silence, the stare, the question about the contract. No, that couldn't be right. His mind started connecting things he had ignored, things he dismissed, things he assumed didn't matter. But now, they all aligned in a way he didn't like. Maya finally spoke again, breaking the tension without raising her voice. I believe we met last night. Her tone was not accusatory. It was factual. Adrian swallowed slightly. You were working there. A faint pause. Then she replied, I was observing there. That line hit differently. Observing, not working, not serving. Observing. The realization began forming slowly in Adrian's mind, like a weight dropping one piece at a time. Maya continued, still calm. I prefer to understand people before making decisions about them, especially people I may work with. The words landed harder than intended. Because suddenly, last night wasn't just a random encounter anymore. It was evaluation, and he had no idea he was being evaluated. Adrian leaned forward slightly, trying to regain control of the situation. So you were testing me? Maya tilted her head slightly, not smiling, not agreeing, just acknowledging the question. I was understanding you, a subtle correction, but it felt heavier than any accusation. The room stayed silent. Adrian's mind raced. He thought about every word he said, every insult, every dismissive gesture, every assumption he made without a second thought. And now she was sitting across from him, not as someone beneath him, but as someone who had the power to decide everything he had come for. He exhaled slowly, trying to stabilize himself. This is unexpected. Maya responded immediately, still composed. You seemed confident yesterday that everything was under control. A pause. Then she added gently, Is it still? That question did not need volume to be powerful. It didn't need anger. It didn't need emotion. It only needed timing, and the timing was perfect. Adrian didn't answer immediately. For the first time in a long time, he didn't have one. The room stayed silent, but it was no longer the same silence as before. Earlier, it had felt professional, controlled, structured. Now it felt heavy, like something had shifted, and no one knew how to move inside it anymore. Adrian Cole sat still, staring at the contract in front of him, but for the first time, the paper meant nothing. The numbers didn't matter. The clauses didn't matter. What mattered was the person sitting across from him, the same woman he had dismissed without a second thought the night before. Maya remained calm, her expression unchanged. No satisfaction, no revenge, no emotion that would give him comfort or anger to react against. That was what made it worse. She wasn't here to humiliate him. She was here because she didn't need to. One of the executives finally spoke softly, breaking the tension. We can proceed only if both parties are aligned. Aligned. The word echoed in Adrian's mind. He wasn't aligned. Not anymore. Not mentally. Not emotionally. Everything inside him was scrambling to catch up with a reality he failed to recognize yesterday. He looked at Maya, trying to find something, anger, superiority, anything he could respond to. But there was nothing. Only calm control. And that made him realize something uncomfortable. He wasn't dealing with someone he could intimidate. He was dealing with someone who had already decided whether he mattered. He cleared his throat slightly, forcing composure back into his voice. "Last night I was unaware of your position." Maya nodded once. "Yes, no judgment in that response, just acceptance." Adrian continued, struggling slightly now. "If I said anything that was inappropriate..." He stopped. Words felt heavier than usual. Maya didn't interrupt. She just waited. That silence pushed him further. "I apologize." The room didn't react. No relief. No reaction at all. Maya finally spoke, her voice steady as ever. "I didn't ask for an apology." That made him pause. She continued, "I asked for understanding." A brief silence followed again. Then she leaned slightly forward, just enough to shift the energy in the room. "People often assume position defines value," she said calmly. "But in business, value defines position." Adrian listened, unmoving. "And last night," she added, "you made assumptions without knowing value." The words weren't loud, but they landed exactly where they were meant to. He looked down for a moment, not in defeat, but in reflection. For the first time in a long time, he wasn't thinking about winning or losing. He was thinking about judgment, and how quickly he had made it. The executive gently placed a pen in front of both of them. "This agreement requires mutual trust," he said. "If either side feels uncertain, we can pause." Pause. Adrian looked at the pen, then at the contract, then at Maya. Everything he thought he controlled no longer responded to him, and slowly he realized something simple. He wasn't the most powerful person in this room. Not today. He exhaled deeply, then finally spoke, his voice quieter than before. "I understand." Maya watched him for a moment longer, then gave a small nod. Not approval. Not rejection. Acknowledgement. That was all. And somehow that was enough. The contract moved forward. But something else ended that day. Not his deal, not his company, but his illusion. The illusion that status protects judgment, or that power makes someone untouchable. Because sometimes the person you overlook yesterday is the one holding your future today. If this story changed the way you think about respect and power, don't forget to like the video. Subscribe for more powerful stories like this, where every action has consequences you don't see coming. And remember, you never really know someone's value until the moment you underestimate them.